Well, good evening, everyone. Noswaith dda. Nice to see you all on a dark, dismal and dank February evening. I'm delighted to say that with me tonight is Glamorgan all-rounder, Andrew Salter. I suppose you could say that tonight this is really the two Andrews, not the two Ronnies, but I'm sure there'll be a few laughs and a little bit of humour on the way. Well, good evening, Salts. Nice to see you, and thanks for giving up your time tonight.
My pleasure, Chalks. I couldn't think of doing anything I'd rather do than this. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're as always such a smooth talker. And now I thought what we would do initially, and it's great to see your mum and dad here as well. Nice to see Graham and Irene, and I know they're going to be helping me a little bit later. But what I thought would be a nice way of starting this evening is just for us to go down memory lane. I'm sorry, I must apologize. But we're going to be talking about your career as a very, very, well, obviously now you're a very experienced Glamorgan cricketer. But let's just talk about your career then as a schoolboy, growing up in playing for St Ishmael's and being in Milford Haven and playing for Pembrokeshire. You're a proud Pembrokeshire man, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very fond memories of playing for St Ishmael's, playing for Pembrokeshire. Cricket was just great fun. Yeah, loved it. At times agricultural. I think I enjoyed that part of the game. But yeah, great fun, and had amazing support, especially from the club to, get me in the deep end with first team, give me opportunity as a youngster. So very grateful and thankful for that, for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But of course, you then graduated via the England age group teams into the Glamorgan Academy. And here you are with Richard Almond alongside, and you're winning there the award of Glamorgan Academy Player of the Year.
Yeah, these are great, aren't they? Wow. God, it does feel like a long time ago.
Well, I believe that was around about the time when you made your first class debut, and here you are. This is in bowling action at Cardiff, but of course it was at Swansea where you had your dream debut. I mean, not everyone can claim to have taken a wicket with their first ball in first class cricket for Glamorgan.
No, and well, yeah, it was an amazing moment, and it was very special. Very nervous before the game, and even before bowling the delivery, I think I was just hoping it landed on the strip. So I think it was actually the lack of spin that got me the wicket in the end. But yeah, it did feel special until Rory Smith did it like the week after on his debut. So he sort of knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit with that one. But no.
Okay, well, there are in the annals of Glamorgan cricket, there are 4 people who've taken a wicket with their first ball in first class cricket. A guy called Jack Johns way back in the 1920s, a guy called Billy Davis in the 1950s, and then you and Rory in more recent times. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities in the future for people to emulate you. Now, in your first full year in 2013, here you are with Mark Wallace, with David Harrison, with Dean Kosker. Do you remember where that is? Do you recognise that room, Salts?
Yeah, I think that's Hampshire. Would that have been the semi-final? Or...
That is the semi-final, indeed. In 2013, in only your 5th ever List A game for Glamorgan. Glamorgan have beaten Hampshire and we're off to Lords. And that, of course, was the Yorkshire Bank 40 competition. And here is a photo of you having just taken one of your wickets in the final. I'm not sure if this was, I think that's Michael Lum, isn't it? Who's just disappearing back to the pavilion at Lords.
Yeah. Well, yeah, both of those this picture and the last one, brings back great memories. The glory days, yeah, it was all very, very new to me. A little bit of a blur really, because you said the nerves of playing my first handful of List A games, but then actually being extremely important games for the club as well, just added to the nerves, I suppose. And yeah, amazing times. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, Lords was very special. But yeah, even the run up to that, I think I remember just enjoying the guys, celebrating some of our wins along the way. I enjoy, yeah, we look at these games in isolation, but just getting to know the squad, the bus journeys, a couple of songs on the bus, etc. Yeah, they were great times, and I think it just gave me a taste of not only what does success feel like at that time, but sharing it with fellow teammates and how special that can be. So yeah, as you said, to start my career on that foot, it just made me wanting more. And yeah, this Lords game was amazing, really. Particularly, I remember the standing ovation Simon Jones had when he finished his spell. For his on the back of your neck. And it wasn't just special for me, it was special for family as well. And yeah, an amazing occasion. Just a shame we fell short in the end, but didn't really take too much away from what was a pretty special day.
You are one of a handful of Glamorgan players who've actually played in 2 knockout finals, because let's not forget Trent Bridge as well as Lords, and there aren't many Glamorgan players who've got that on their sporting CV. We look at you as being an outstanding spin bowler, a extremely capable batter, but of course in the modern game of cricket it's multi-dimensional, and your fielding, and here captured in this brilliant photo. We actually use this, Salts, when we have children, and I should say in pre-COVID times we had 22,000 young people come to visit us at Sophia Gardens. Last year, I'm delighted to say, just over 16,500. And this photo I was shown to a group of primary school children last week. And the one thing that they said were, look at his eyes, focusing on the target. The eyes on the prize, I suppose, Salts.
Yeah, it's a shame that ball looks like it's going absolutely nowhere near them, mind. But,
well, the camera does distort things, but they did say about the concentration, and okay, maybe it did spin back in like a good off spinner, but anyway. But your fielding skills, you are a modern cricketer, multi-dimensional, as I say, with bat, with ball, and in the field. And when we say with bat, do you recognise this?
Yeah, I actually think that was the one I got caught on the boundary just in the last over the Blast finals day. Yeah.
I'm sorry. This was the one that ended up Courthose Bode Wokes for 27. And but you had hit 3 4s and a 6 before that, and that looked like the second 6, and who knows what could have happened off the other 2 balls. But that was Birmingham, Edgbaston, Glamorgan against the Birmingham Bears, T20 Finals Day 2017. That was something different, wasn't it?
Yeah. To be fair, never been to a finals day, not just as a player, but as a spectator. So I didn't really know exactly what to expect, apart from what you see on TV. And it is carnage, really. I think it's closer to a darts crowd with all the fancy dress and singing. But it was incredible atmosphere. And yeah, that was a nice little cameo at the end. It was quite funny because in sort of fashion, edged 1 for 4 first ball. Then I think I tried to hit one over cow corner and it went over extra cover. So it was going everywhere. But that was probably one of my best shots in the over. And as you can see from the photo, when I hit it, I was looking straight into the sun, and I felt like I had a good chunk of it as well. So a bit of me was thinking, oh, this is going to go all the way. And as you said, they caught on the boundary, and he actually ran into his fellow teammate as well. So I thought there was a chance that he might have dropped it, or it was just carnage. That over was carnage. The day was carnage. But yeah, it was amazing. And again, it's a shame that didn't quite get us over the line to experience a final at finals day. But it was great all the same, and we had a real good team then, a good bunch of lads that enjoyed playing together. And again, that's something that I remember just as much as time on the field. It's time spent off the field as well.
Absolutely. And again, in terms of your cricketing CV, there's only a small number of Glamorgan players who've played in both a 50 over and in a T20 at finals day. I know it wasn't necessarily the T20 final, but who knows, that could be on the agenda for 2023 or 2024. Well, you are a cup winner with Glamorgan. There you are on the extreme left at Trent Bridge in August 2021. Kieran Carlson raising the Royal London Cup there. And of course, you've proudly got your winner's medal around your neck. A great day to be a Welsh cricketer, Salts.
Truly amazing. Yeah. The whole cup was really, and it was probably a turbulent cup for me, really, because I didn't start the competition. With the way everything was going with the introduction of the 100, I think it'd be fair to say we didn't really go into it with too much expectation. We were just going to see how things developed, and yeah, I wasn't involved for the first chunk of games, which for me was a bit of a tough one, a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. But I was hungry and eager to take my opportunity if it came about. So to be honest, I had a bit of a point to prove coming into that team for the sort of the second half of the competition. So to pick up a bit of momentum, to play with no fear, with no expectation, I think it really showed what we can do a little bit as underdogs, but just with that Welsh Glamorgan spirit to try and take on the English counties. So an incredible day, amazing memories, ones that this one actually does feel like closer to yesterday than some of the other pictures. You know, I really remember it fondly, and
you've got every reason to, because here you are, a screen grab. Many thanks to our friends in Sky for providing this, and here you are. I'm glad to say that's not an earring you've got on your right ear. I did look at this photo, and I just realised it is an advertising logo behind, rather than you suddenly becoming quite hip and trendy for once. But the point is, you were man of the match, and there aren't many Glamorgan players who could say that they were man of the match in cup finals. Matthew Maynard had a brilliant 100 in the year 2000 in the B&H Cup final against Gloucestershire. But here you are after bowling figures of 3 for 42, and the big guns of Durham had fallen to you. Alex Lees, Graham Clark, and David Bedingham, who I think had been hitting boundaries for fun in the earlier rounds for Durham. But of course, along comes Andrew Salter, and they disappear back to the Trent Bridge Pavilion.
I think these days, and you know, I look back at loads as well, and especially this one, the games are just different. They're played differently. The days, everything feels different. Everything's on a knife edge. Wickets are celebrated harder. Dismissals hurt more than others. So like everything's just heightened on these days and on finals. So you never really know what you're getting yourself in for. Anything can happen on the day. So it's just a case of just going with the flow and having a full crack at it. You know, you can't leave anything in the changing room. And I think there was just the overriding feeling from all the players was just excitement. You know, these sort of days don't come around often at all. And for a lot of the boys, they hadn't experienced anything like it. So I think, it was just all these lads excited to get out on the park, give it 100%, and see what happens. I know I was very lucky to be there
in the changing room afterwards, there was champagne, but yes, there were tears of joy and tears. It was an emotional day, and it was great to be there and to be part of it. And it just showed what it means to everyone to have the Glammy Daffodil on their shirt. And of course, there were some people in the crowd afterwards, Salts, you wanted to go and see.
I think I had to see Andrew. Yeah. I did want to. It was it was an amazing day, and all of these games, all of these memories are only worthwhile when you can share them. So yeah, it was amazing that both Lauren and her mum Mel behind her could make it. Really, really special, and for this game in particular, but that's every step of my career so far. It's only really worthwhile when you can share it, and be it with mum and dad, with family, and with Loz and Mel on this occasion. But
and the eagle-eyed people on the call and who are going to be watching this recording will probably know Lauren in her professional guise. Do you just want to outline that? Because I think she has been on telly this week quite a bit.
Loz works as a rugby presenter, journalist, and recently done quite a bit of work on Scrum 5. So, and with everything going on at the moment, particularly busy, busier than me, that's for sure.
And definitely supporting Wales against England now that the game is on Saturday. So I think we're all going to be, we're all mightily relieved, and it's great happy memories there, Trent Bridge in August 2021. And of course, on the back of that, you suddenly become a pin-up boy. Here you are on Glamorgan's membership posters last year. There's Kieran Carlson holding up the trophy. We can see Chris Cook on the right-hand side. And there you are with bat in hand, looking like a very mean dude who's going to go out and blast 100.
Well, it's all about trying to look the part, isn't it, Chalks? It's only taken me 10 years to get on a poster, so work in progress.
Yeah. Well, very richly deserved, of course. And in terms of the summer of 2022, further plaudits come your way, and in particular, the thing I think that means so much to so many Glamorgan players, the award of your Glamorgan cap. To follow on from what I was saying about sharing these occasions, these experiences, so amazing that mum and dad were there for it. Made it feel very, very special. Something that getting capped is something you think about, but then forget about quickly as well when you're in the heat of battle and you're concentrating on playing the game, and for myself, trying to figure out which end of the bat to hold whilst opening the batting. So lots going on. So it wasn't something that was particularly on my mind, but walking down the steps, seeing mum and dad there and everyone, and some lovely words from Matt as well, whilst getting presented my cap is, an amazing experience, and super delighted, super proud, an amazing moment. But made even more special the fact that mum and dad made it. Not just that, but they did a pretty healthy journey from London back to St. Ishmael's the day before, and then decided to jump back on the M4 and come up to Cardiff. So I think that just sums up their dedication and sacrifice throughout the years to give me the opportunity to play for Glamorgan. So it's just as much for them really to say thanks, just as much as it was for myself. So I'm only saying that because they're on this call, but it's well,
amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah, I owe it to them.
Yeah, lovely words, Salts. And I don't know whether you've been up the pavilion on the top floor, going by the door into the changing rooms recently, but there is, for those of the people on the call who don't know, there is a large gold leaf board which has a list of all the capped players for Glamorgan. I'm glad to say that the two players who received their caps last year, Andrew Salter and Sam Northeast, are now on that board. So when you're popping up there, Salt, to get your bags before you head off to Zimbabwe, have a look at that. And it's there forever and ever. Amen. But there's also another side to Andrew Salter. Baffle House, what's all that about?
In a nutshell, got into motorcycling, trying to be cool, looked like David Beckham. This is all about 6 years ago. Then the strange way of the world with Instagram and social media, got a little bit busy on there, posting pictures, trying to capture this biking culture. I think it has quite a lot of stigma at times as soon as you start mentioning riding, but for myself and a lot of the guys that I ride with these days, it's a distraction. It's a huge passion and interest of mine outside the game, and we've sort of followed that a little bit, and now we have a coffee house, a kitchen, a store, a hub of motorcycling sort of culture, and well, sort of a bit of a petrol head venue just outside Cardiff in Goitra. So yeah, we're trying to capture this culture, and it's good fun.
Excellent. Well, we'll talk much more as we proceed this evening, Salts, with your career, both as a young businessman and as a cricketer. But I want to go back to the very big, well, not quite back to the very beginning, I hasten to add, but you were born on the 1st of June, 1993. Now, I'd love to say 1993 was an important year because you were born there, but of course it was a totemic year for Glamorgan cricket because Glamorgan won their first ever piece of one-day silverware with Tony Cottee hitting a straight four. Okay, it was a top-edge straight four over the wicketkeeper's head down at Canterbury, and Glamorgan had won the Sunday League, Viv Richards alongside him sprinting off. How much, as a young boy growing up in Pembrokeshire then, how much did you follow Glamorgan cricket? Because obviously when you were 4 years old, Glamorgan were county champions in 1997. Then when you were 7 years old, Glamorgan playing in the B&H final at Lords in the year 2000. When you were 9, Glamorgan winning the one-day league in 2002 at Canterbury again. And then when you're a stripling of 11, here's Glamorgan winning the Sunday League again up at Colwyn Bay. So how much of that Glamorgan success permeated down to Pembrokeshire where you were growing up?
Well, it is a little bit of a sheltered life, Chalks. No, to be fair, I think Dad sort of just with his love of cricket and Glamorgan, that sort of fed through to myself and my brother. And Sophia Gardens was this place that we were just in awe of. First memory was probably playing Wales under-11s game there at the ground, and it was just somewhere very special. And then the natural progression on that is to watch some one-day cricket, to watch the team, and yeah, it was just this place where I was standing on the boundary trying to get players' autographs. And I was a proper fanboy. Me and my brother would cut out pictures, more so my brother James to stitch him up on this one. Would cut out pictures of some of the players and put it on a mood board in the bedroom and stuff like that. So love watching Glamorgan. And then we'd spend hours on end in Nan's Drive trying to be these players. And we'd wear our Glamorgan tops and spend every day of the summer in the driveway playing.
So was that in Milford Haven or Haverfordwest?
The part one was Milford Haven until I don't know 10, 11-ish, and then we moved to St Ishmael's. That could be wrong, but it's something like that.
Okay, but your father Graham was no mean cricketer himself.
I'm not sure. Is this where Dad jumps on and talks about his career?
You won't.
My memories of Dad, before he actually tells everyone of how he would like to have seen his career. You know, a lot of my memories is watching Dad play and would just, you know, whack it and twirl some off spinners out. So I think that's exactly where I got it from. But then one of his final memories or me watching him play was, I mean, he holds a record in St Ishmael's for running the longest single, because he either cramped up or did his hamstring, which meant he couldn't stop running. So this single he took lasted about 60 yards, 80 yards. And that was one of my fond memories of watching Dad play cricket.
Well, there's no finer introduction there, Graham, but you're not a Pembrokeshire man by birth, are you? Your roots are more Monmouthshire, aren't they?
That's correct, yes. I hail from Cwmbran originally, born in Pontypool, born in Newport, in the hospital in Newport, then went up to Pontypool for a couple of years, but then my family settled in Cwmbran. And I actually, at the age of 14, I went to play for Malpas, just outside Newport. I played for them for the best part of 10 years before going on to college. I actually came back and played for them a little bit as well. So, yeah, my roots are firmly set in and around Newport area.
And then you moved to Pembrokeshire because that's where your business interests took you?
That's right, yes. We opened a business in Milford Haven. And funny enough, the story is that we started selling and making roller blinds, vertical blinds. And I started buying all my screws from the hardware centre opposite where we set up the shop. And I started buying them by the gross. And then I met the manageress there and I started buying them by the dozen. And after a couple of months, I was sort of buying them singly. And cut a long story short, that's how we met our wife, and now Andrew arrived. So it all hails from Milford Haven at the start.
Brilliant. And I know, Irene, you, I must say, it's a pleasure to talk this evening to a fellow scorer, because you were keeper of the scorebook for St Ishmael's. And I've got a funny feeling when Andrew scored one of his early hundreds, were you there making a note of it?
Yes, yeah, I was lucky enough to do that. I'm not in the same league as you, though, Andrew, I must say. Oh,
steady on. But we've both used coloured pens in our thank you.
I did get to that level. But
yeah.
No, it was very enjoyable. It was brilliant to score that. I think it was I can't remember why I ended up doing that. I think I was filling in for somebody else, but it was still a lovely occasion and nice to be able to do that and to be a part of that.
And you must be very proud of Andrew, but also your other son James, who if I've done my homework right, James was a fast bowler, and actually Andrew also had aspirations initially of being a fast bowler. You're amongst friends, so you can tell the world if that's correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, although at every opportunity, Andrew did like to play to fast pace bowl, didn't he? He
had a natural away swinger, which he developed when he was about 12-ish, and he didn't actually start bowling spin until Alan Jones spotted him when he was under 11 actually, and tried to get him to bowl spin, which he did every time he went up to Cardiff to practice. But every game that he had for St Ishmael's and for West Wales, he would bowl these seamers. And it was actually Alan Jones that said, "Look, you've got to stop doing this now and concentrate on your off spin," which he did, and he ended up very successful at it.
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, you must have had a boyhood hero, Andrew, in terms of a cricketer. So, who were those cricketing heroes of the early noughties? I'm guessing maybe 2005. Perhaps there were some people there. Salts.
Yeah, that was. I loved watching cricket throughout that period. The 2005 Ashes, even now watching some of the footage back, just incredible. And it probably just didn't only sort of captivate me, but captivated the nation. It was on free to view TV. It was on Channel 4, I think it was.
I think it was, yeah.
But yeah, incredible. So I don't have a really clear answer for you in terms of one particular player that I would have idolized. As you said, I do remember watching these one-day games at Glamorgan and watching Crofty and Koska do their thing. Likewise, you mentioned fielding a little bit as well. I think I always used to watch Dean in the field and sort of, aspire to be anywhere near as good as he was in the field, especially with sort of the energy and the acrobats. So yeah, tough one. And then, yeah, the way England, I hate to say it, but I did love the way Peterson played, especially throughout that time. I ended up buying a woodworm cricket bat which was yellow, and I didn't quite have the yellow mohawk, which you'll be happy about, Andrew. But
yeah, I think I would rather call it skunk than mohawk. But anyway, but yes, I know I was in my final years as a schoolmaster then, before retiring and moving to Cardiff to do what I've been doing since. And I do know that in the summer of 2005, I won't name which school, but I was the school I was at, Wells Cathedral School. We were playing. I helped to look after the under-15 cricketers, and there was a school we played where two of the batters came in with the skunk look, and I have to say that they came in and they were very much like KP. Fine player, KP, but I'm glad to say, as someone who upholds traditions with hairstyles and things like that, being a traditionalist, I'm glad you didn't go down that route. Now, Salts, in all seriousness, you just mentioned Alan Jones in terms of your dad mentioned Alan Jones spotted you. But there is one man, and sadly no longer with us, but there is one man for whom we all owe a huge debt of thanks and kindness, a great coach. I'm talking, of course, about John Derrick. So, Salts, how did JD influence your career?
The first sort of thing I think about when John's mentioned is the amount of times he would take the opportunity just to show off his own cover drive. Whenever we were in the net, he wouldn't be happy with my head position. I wasn't transferring my weight into the ball. I was lazy. I was using my hands. And he would just take the opportunity just to grab my bat, get me behind the bowling machine just to feed some balls. And he wouldn't have any pads, gloves, nothing on. But he would crunch the ball through the covers every single time. And he had a lovely way of playing. He had a lovely way of coaching. Amazing person, which, yeah, I loved working with. But yeah, I just remember the way he played these cover drives, and with no pads, no fear, but just doing the basics extremely well, getting that head and shoulder into the ball, transferring that weight. He did it with ease, and then he would just give the bat back to me a bit like, that's how it's done. Now it's your turn. But I think a lot of players had that experience with John where he could would just let us know he still had it, and he could play these shots. But yeah, a great player just as much as he was a coach. And
I was joking a few minutes about haircuts and what have you, but I do know that John very much wanted the game to be played in the way it should be. And in terms of grooming young professionals, you could have had no finer mentor, because your early years there, going through the Welsh age groups and then moving up into Glamorgan twos, JD was there as a guiding influence.
Yeah, definitely. And they're really important years. Especially as you said with my upbringing being Pembrokeshire in St Ishmael's, the school that I was going to in Milford Haven. Later on, we didn't have a cricket team really, the school stuff. So the importance of the link between St Ishmael's club cricket to then Pembrokeshire, West Wales, and then these Welsh age groups, it's huge importance for actually I suppose making that progression and making playing professional cricket an actual opportunity. And yeah, they definitely had a huge part in steering me in the right direction. You know, you go sort of from Alan Jones to John Derrick, and then the next year, you know, you have Tony Cottee coaching you, and these players with their wealth of experience to guide and direct me in the right direction. You know, I'm, you know, very, very grateful for that. And to be fair, I think it was Cottee that gave me a couple of hard lessons about getting that reverse sweeping before lunch, which I've never done since. Yeah, I think they just made it quite clear that it was possible to play for Glamorgan. But this is what's sort of expected from you. This is how you play the game. This is how, you know, if you want to wear the daft, this is what you got to do. And I think from that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and get my head down and yeah, give it a full crack.
Now, in your late teens, I know you came under the influence of the England age group selectors. You played 4 youth ODIs against Sri Lanka on a tour to Sri Lanka. But in your late teens, would you have described yourself as a batter or a bowler or as an all-rounder? Where would you place yourself?
I still don't know, man. I was opening batsman last season. I'd see how I got that in there. I suppose my attacking nature and my batting being that sort of lower middle order was where I was naturally going with my game. The spin bowling, the white ball stuff was, or in general, you know, a bit maybe more do a job type and end. But yeah, I was really enjoying my batting and trying to really play in a positive nature. But I think that's been my career as a whole, is being adaptable and flexible to the situation and just going with the flow. And I've tried to do as well as possible throughout my career. So I've never stayed in one particular position or rounder, bowler, whatever for too long. So yeah, a tough one to answer with too much clarity for you. Sorry.
No, I know a lot of people speak very highly of your batting prowess as a youngster, and equally I know from what I've seen, you know, fine bowler in both red ball as well as white ball cricket. Well, you moved then from your schooling days in Pembrokeshire to Cardiff Met. Before that, though, I believe you were around about the age of 17 when you made your Glamorgan second 11 debut. If I've done my homework right, I've got a feeling it was against Leicestershire at Abergavenny. Have you got any? Well, I think it was a second 11 championship as opposed to others. A lovely ground, Abergavenny. But what do you remember as basically a schoolboy from Pembrokeshire, an age group cricketer for Wales, an age group player for England, coming in now and playing against full-time professionals in the framework of a second 11?
Yeah, I do remember the second 11 stuff just being again a massive step up. The squad we had around that sort of time when I started playing second team cricket was very strong, with the likes of Mike Powell playing, Mike O'Shea, William Bragg was playing now and again. I go for this: Will Owen, David Lloyd, Nick, like full of contracted players, full of stars. So yeah, I think it was just a case of, right, yeah, this is what professional cricket is, and I think because the standard was so high, yeah, there's no room for salter full tosses or anything like that, which I love to chuck in now and again. So yeah, it was pretty clear that was the standard I had to get to, and that was expected from you. And if you wanted to be successful in second cricket and earn a contract, then you know you have to sort of do it the hard way with performances and show what you're made of. But yeah, it was a great standard, and that was sort of around Wales minor counties as well at a similar time. So yeah, both of those were different. I think second team was extremely professional, and then Wales minor counties was hard cricket because you had a lot of players who were very good but maybe not quite made the professional cut, but they played particularly hard and let you know about it as well.
Yeah, but for you as an emerging all-rounder, a great learning curve and a great learning experience, and something then you actually, what a lot of people don't always remember is that your first class debut didn't come for Glamorgan, but you were within the Cardiff Met setup. So you'd gone from your school days in Pembrokeshire to do your degree studies at Cardiff Met. And what a great opportunity that is under what was then the MCCU framework, now the UCC framework. So there you were as an aspiring county cricketer, rubbing shoulders with so many other youngsters and getting a chance to play first class cricket.
Yeah, yeah, great years. Sort of all rolled into one a little bit from uni, meeting, friends that, friends for life and building a life outside of cricket. But as you touch upon the actual cricket side as well, to have that opportunity to test yourselves against the best, especially in pre-seasons, and try and show counties, show Glamorgan what you're made of, was an amazing opportunity. I still don't like or probably agree with it being first class cricket. I just never felt like it was totally worthy of its title. I think first class cricket is, something really special. And, my first class debut, in my opinion, would always be, a Swansea for Glamorgan. And to play a 3-day game, university versus a county where, it just wasn't first class cricket in my opinion. And I was never really happy with that title, to be completely transparent on this call.
Yeah, as a statistician, I do know that there were games when Glamorgan played Cardiff MCCU in the early noughties where Glamorgan were racking up 500, 600, and then bowling students out for 100, 150, not enforcing a follow-on, and then winning by 200, 300 runs. It was a means to an end pre-season. But for the likes of the people, some of your contemporaries who never made it to a county, then at least they can say that they did have that opportunity. But what I personally, and I'm looking now at the likes of Dan Douthwaite, I'm looking at Andy Gorvin, potentially others as well, but those guys who didn't get a crack of the whip first time, in Dan's case with Surrey and then Warwickshire, with Andy in Hampshire, but they kept going, and now they're carving a county career on the back of what they did for the universities. So whilst I hear what you're saying, Salts, about the standard, but it is a stepping stone for many, many players. And I'm sure Glamorgan are stronger from having that link with the three universities, Cardiff Met, Cardiff Uni, and the Uni of South Wales. I just ask?
Yeah, just to jump in, I got no issue with the fixture. I think the fixture is fantastic. The opportunity, the partnerships, amazing. Just don't call it first class cricket.
Yeah, and that's what's happened, because it no longer is.
Yeah.
None of the games are first class. But can I just discreetly ask, what is your degree in?
Sports coaching. Yeah, that's the top layer of it.
Okay.
Yeah, sports coaching. Yeah.
Okay, something maybe in a few years' time, not immediately, of course, but something that will stand you in good stead in the years to come. Well, you've mentioned it already. Your first class debut for Glamorgan. We talked about it when we were looking at the slideshows, but you had been doing very well in the second team. Robert Croft's illustrious career was, well, Crofty was never going to carry on forever and ever and ever. And Glamorgan gave you an opportunity then against Leicestershire at Swansea. what did it feel like to be called up and then to be walking out onto the field, perhaps running alongside players who only a few years ago you were collecting their autographs?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, very, very special. I think there was something, extra special. The fact it was in Swansea, being West Wales, a little bit closer to home as well. So not as big a drive for mum and dad. Yeah, I think it's not just my nerves, but I think everyone shares those nerves a little bit. Mum and dad were probably more nervous than I was, but it was, yeah, it's a great day out. I think St. Helens as well sort of lent itself quite nicely to it because of people sort of, watching the game sitting literally on the boundary. It has got a slightly different feel to it, and it felt like quite a nice, like a close, warming sort of feel, and very, very special. As you said, extremely nervous. You pretty much just try not to mess up. I think that's the operation of day one, and then you slowly get into the game day two. By day four, you're probably slightly less nervous. But yeah, that morning, it's just a case of trying to take it in, but realistically, it's tough to do.
And the ball came your way. You were thrown the ball, and you run into bowl to a guy from Leicester called Shiv Thacker. And with your first ball, what happens?
Yeah. Well, what I didn't do was spin it. That's for a fact. I just didn't want to. I wanted to make sure A, it bounced, and B, it bounced on the track we were playing on. I think they were the two things that I wanted to achieve. And then he got a small edge to Wally behind the stumps, and Wally was running towards me, and I didn't realize what exactly was going on. I just happy that, as you said, it was straight enough. And the lack of spin, which has been a common theme of my my career so far, picked me up a wicket on my first ball. Surreal, isn't it? Mad, really.
Surreal, but let's not forget Glamorgan won by an innings, and you played no small part in that. Crofty at that stage, as I say, having retired or moving into retirement, I should say. What advice did Crofty give you?
To be honest, a lot of his advice and what filtered down to me was just his way of training. There was a transition where I would bowl with him a lot of nets. I was in and around those sessions. So it wasn't necessarily just, you said that moment where he handed me my cap on debut. There's years of watching him go about his business. And I think that just really filtered down to me of how much time he put in dedicating to his skill, bowling at cones. Very disciplined, expecting, the highest of standards. And he didn't expect anything less from me when I tried my best to fill his boots. So yeah, that's something I really took from watching and bowling and playing with Crofty.
And 2013, as we saw earlier on the slideshow, here you are having made your mark in Championship cricket. You now become a member of Glamorgan's List A one-day team. The Yorkshire Bank Pro 40, as it was called then, was the knockout tournament. You're now in a bowling attack of Michael Hogan, Jim Allenby, Simon Jones, Dean Kosker, and Graham Wagg. There you are, a key element amongst those six bowlers, and Glamorgan have a good run. I can remember the quarter-final at Headingley against Yorkshire, where Glamorgan got through, Graham Wagg playing a major role there. And as we saw earlier on the photos in the changing room at the Ageas Bowl, Glamorgan beating Hampshire in the semi-final. Now here you are with literally 3 or 4 games behind you, and you're now thrown into quarterfinals, semi-finals, never mind the final at Lord's. But what was it like playing in, a quarter-final, semi-final of a cup competition with all the expectation that brings.
Yeah, I think I just love being a part of it. I loved having a part to play in it. I just wanted to be involved, really. So I remember that time on the pitch and off the pitch. It was really good fun. It was bus journeys to and from games. There was a couple of celebratory waters afterwards throughout that year. And like you're right, there's some huge names there that I'm playing alongside, but also rooming with and sharing these wins and the journey. So the whole thing for me was just really good fun. Maybe the expectation for myself as a youngster wasn't the highest. I think I was just in a mindset of, well, all I can do is have a go, because that expectation probably wasn't there at that stage of my career. It was just exciting, and there was nothing to lose. I think that expectation creeps into your career the longer you play and when you start stepping into more senior roles. But as a youngster, there wasn't necessarily that pressure on my shoulders. It was more the freedom to have fun and express myself. And you mentioned the likes of Waggy and people like Graham, where they were fearless. Simon Jones, these were guys that played the game in such a manner that you couldn't help but have a crack as well. So yeah, it was contagious, where the attitude from the players about how we played the game at that point, and me as a youngster, I just went with the flow. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was just doing my best and running up and twirling some offies down there.
Well, you were twirling some offies, but your bowling figures: 7 overs, 1 maiden, 2 for 41 in the final, the wicket of Michael Lem. You also picked up Samit Patel, who of course came to Glamorgan briefly on loan a few years ago. But that's not a bad return, and I know Glamorgan were in a very good position. Simon, in what proved to be his final appearance in a high-profile game for Glamorgan. I know we got into a good position, but then Michael Hussey and Chris Reed, I seem to remember, managed to have a decent partnership. And, well, it wasn't to be, but the Notts Outlaws won. And you, though, on your cricketing CV, one of the players in Glamorgan's history to actually appear in a Lord's final. And there aren't many. Of course, 1977, the year 2000, and again, 2013. Of course, I'm not including Trent Bridge, I'm talking Lord's finals, but there are only a small handful, as I say, of Glamorgan players who actually have tasted being at Lord's on finals day. And I know as Glamorgan scorer, that was a wonderful occasion. I don't remember if you remember, Salts, we had a coach from the hotel, which was in South London, south of the river. We crossed over, and I can remember obviously the tension on the coach, and as we drove towards Lord's and then pulling in by the ground in St John's Wood and all the autograph hunters alongside, and here we are stepping off the coach. I know my place, so I was the last person off, but what a wonderful, wonderful occasion. But what struck me though, Salts, was that after the game, both teams got together, a bit like at the final at Trent Bridge as well, but both teams got together. Notts invited us into their change room, and it was nice to see the game being played in the right spirit and players getting together at the end. Yeah,
and what a squad and team they had as well. We talk about some of the big names we had, but they had an all-star team. And I was, going into their change room, I was sitting next to, Stuart Broad, Graham Swan, England legends. And yeah, it's one of those times where, you just sit there and sip on my water, hydrating after a tough day on the pitch. But yeah, just as you said, it's an amazing experience. It's invaluable. It's priceless. And it makes occasions like that, you're right, even more special to share with the opposition, and likewise, Trent Bridge. Similar setup with enjoying a water after the game with opposition. It's great because you said cricket it's an amazing sport. It's it's just as tough mentally as it is physically. Yet players can compete very hard on the pitch. Yet they can enjoy hydration and sharing some good times after it as well. And I think that's special. And fingers crossed that's a sort of vibe and culture that remains moving forward.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about Alan Jones, we talked about John Derrick, we talked about Robert Croft passing on advice to you, but I know in the years after Lords, where you are starting to make your way both in red ball as well as white ball cricket, there was one man in New Zealand who played an important role in your development, and of course someone who subsequently has been recognised by the England coaching setup. I'm talking about Jeetan Patel, who we would know as someone with a fine career, not only for New Zealand, but also a fine career with Warwickshire. But going out to New Zealand, Salts, and working with him, what are your memories of that?
Well, first and foremost, just New Zealand as a country and as a place to go is incredible. It was incredible. I was lucky to go out there twice. So I had 2 winters or summers for them in Wellington. So with that, I had 2 opportunities to work with Jeetan back-to-back seasons, off seasons. And yeah, incredible. The Jeetan as himself, as a player, as a bowler, is a genius. Doesn't matter how many technical sessions I do and review my game, I'll never be able to put the spin that he does and what he does with a ball. It's slightly magical, really. It's incredible. But as a coach and as a mentor, he was great to work with. I suppose for me, it was just having a different outlook, different luck on my bowling, which I've been doing for years. And one of our first sessions was just we met for a coffee because there's a big sort of coffee culture in New Zealand, and I brought my bowling boots with me, and I think he knew straight away, I wasn't going to be putting them on and actually bowling that day. He found more value in sitting down with me and talking about the game, talking about bowling for a couple of hours. So we didn't actually end up training at all or even getting to the ground. We just stayed in a cafe around the corner and we just spoke about the game, where I feel I bowl my best, where I haven't, maybe reasons why. And it was just, I think he just really showed his experience and his class to be able to sit down and listen and just sound it out. So that was probably the starting point of working with him for these 2 seasons, and really getting into the game, because as a spin bowler, it's just as much mental, trying to figure out the game and field positioning and what you're trying to do, and changing your pace, changing your angle at the crease. There's all sorts to think about as much as there is actual the technical side of it. So an incredible person to work with. Really enjoyed him. He's quite a straight talking bloke, and we didn't mess around too much. So no, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great. I did mention earlier on, we've got a number of questions which people on the call and others who can't make it have, but will be watching the recording. People have pre-submitted some questions. Now, Neil has sent a question in asking, how do you mentally prepare? And are there any differences for playing in a T20 game compared with a championship match over 4 days? So he's talking about the mental preparation in particular. So
yeah,
interesting question.
Yeah, good question. I don't think it's an answer where it's not. There's not just one thing I do for every single game. It's not that black and white. What's important for me is probably the preparation. A day before a game, days before a game. The season is full on. You can be jumping from 4-day game to a 1-day game to, you know, T20, and you could be going from a horrendous loss, which you need to, you know, or you could be coming from a great win with momentum. So for me, the big part of it is just trying to take each game in isolation and day. So I'll try and give a bit more clarity. Yeah, so my mental preparation, well, you touched upon it, but half the time is getting away from the game. It's jumping on my bike, my motorbike. It's not overthinking. It's a way to spend time with family and friends. Run after the dog in the park because he's probably terrorizing people. So it's that. It's keeping it, you know, completely fresh. Getting away from it so that when I do come to a game, I'm not carrying too much baggage from previous days gone, which, you know, can't affect this game or the day's play. So big one for me is trying to switch off, trying to get away from it so that on that day, you know, you just got to try and keep a clear mind, because it's an instinctive game where when you're batting and someone's running in at pace, you haven't got time to really think too much about it. So it's an instinctive game where I feel like if you're in a good place and you got a clear mind, me personally, I generally play my best cricket. So it's just about that, not overthinking it, trying to, not coming with any baggage to a new, fresh day, a challenge.
Yeah, keeping it simple, because at the end of the day, whether it's a red ball or a white ball, whether it's 20 overs, 50 overs, or innings of over 100, it's a game between a bat and a ball, and there are commonalities running through. I think it's interesting. I've been doing some work with some county archivists in other counties about some of the great names. And of course, if you go back to the likes of Don Shepherd, if you go back to other off-spinning greats, Jim McConnon, if you go back to the days of even Johnny Clay, where county cricket was just one format, 3 days. Then gradually 4 days came in. Then, of course, the one-day competition was sandwiched in between. Salts, you're far too young to remember the days when we would actually start a championship match on a Saturday. Then people would jump in the cars, head off potentially to another part of the country to play a 40-over game, then head back to wherever on the Monday you'd start at the game on the Saturday. So the mental preparation there, I think that's what Neil is getting at, is that there's a different mindset now. But at the end of the day, you're quite right. Keep it simple, clear mind, fresh mind. I know that your role within the Glamorgan T20 team, as I say, in the 2010s, leading up to T20 finals day, your role became someone who might bowl at the start of an innings, potentially only having 1 over. But I know that's something that Prem Sisodia in more recent times, and you as well in T20s. But what is the mindset going out at the start of an innings when so you're taking pace off the ball? But just talk to me about that compared with coming on maybe at the end of the power play. So you've had in T20, you've had your 6 overs, fielding restrictions. What is there really? What my question is, Salt, is there a difference in your mindset, knowing that you've got fielders and you've got the ability to have fielders in different places?
Yeah, so I think you're right. The first over quite often can be a very good over to bowl. I always enjoyed it because it's actually the only over probably in the game where batsmen are also playing with a little bit of caution to get themselves in, get their eye in. Generally speaking, Colin Munro also hit me first ball of the game for 6 over my head before. So, but generally, that first over you can get in. If you bowl straight, keep it nice and tight, and you don't give the batsman too much width, you can pretty much get in and out of that over quickly. And that's sort of a role I did before. Something that Prem's done for us really well. The further on into that power play, that first 6, the tougher it is. The batsmen are playing aggressively. You've only got 2 people out. So it's tough. It becomes a case of, you know, it's either you or the batsman. So I do enjoy it, but that's definitely a tougher time to bowl, and you just got to be bold and hope it's your day. And then when you've got guys out come middle overs, one thing I've learned is definitely it's not a time to be complacent or think you've got cover, because batsmen these days don't really care if there's a person on the boundary. If you're playing at Chelmsford, Taunton, Sophia Gardens, you know, there's a couple of grounds here where you can target boundaries because they're on the smaller side. You know, you've got to bowl lots of variations, lots of slower balls, lots of arm balls, lots of quicker balls, and keep the batsman guessing. So it's not a game where you can just settle into a way of bowling. You got to try and be one step ahead of the batsman and make it as unpredictable as possible. So yeah, it's a tricky format as a spinner, but if you do get it right, you can be pretty effective.
Well, luckily, in the year 2017, Glamorgan as a collective unit under the captaincy of Jacques Rudolph, and we'll come back to captains because I've got another question that's been pre-submitted on that in a minute. But 2017, Glamorgan got on a roll again, a fantastic quarter-final in the T20s, beating Leicestershire. I seem to remember it was a crowd record at Cardiff for a domestic T20, somewhere in the region of 11,000 people. Just to add a little bit of spice to it, Mark Cosgrove, our, if I put it, larger-than-life Australian former colleague, was in the Leicestershire Foxes team. But Glamorgan won. And I can remember after the game, the smiles, the looks on people's faces that we'd made it to finals day again at Edgbaston. So we'll talk about Edgbaston again in a minute, but that game against Leicestershire at Sophia, what are your memories of the quarter-final?
To be honest, nothing personally that really stands out. The one thing that stands out for that game for me was, and you mentioned him, Jack Rudolph, someone who I really enjoyed playing with, but also someone who I spent quite a bit of time with off the pitch. And he was a great mentor for me in the way to play the game, the way to strive, you know, push to higher standards. But I think he really wanted to get us to finals day. Something he spoke at length about, and I think he played throughout that competition in an incredible manner. You know, he did it in 50 over cricket, but then he was able to, you know, adapt his game and really lead the way in terms of the way he was reverse sweeping. I think he shows that he must share that highlight of that shot all the time. But he played it in a manner that was, you know, leading from the front. And then, you know, the likes of Colin Ingram just to come in after him, you know, Jim Allenby up top, etc. It was a great team, and we played in an attacking manner. But I just remember, you know, for Rudolph, that was I think that was a big occasion for him in a Glamorgan shirt. He really wanted to get us to finals day. He loved that, you know, he loved T20 cricket. He really wanted us to get there. So I just remember sort of his celebrations from that particular win and what it meant to him. And that sort of things, as you said, it's highly infectious in a changing room, and we all just buzzing to get to Edgbaston and climb into the carnage that unfolds there. Yeah,
I can remember Jacques played an innings against Gloucestershire opening the batting where he got 100, and I can remember that he was ticking over. His role clearly was to bat through the innings, or to bat as deep as he could as an opener. And I can remember he got to 50 or 60, and then in the last 3 or 4 overs, crash bang wallop. And when he let himself go, and again, I remember the one-day innings that he hit 160 odd down at against Sussex at home. What a fine player, but also what a fine man as well, and as a role model. The question that had been pre-submitted from Edward was, which captain have you learned, and this would have included St Ishmael's, perhaps when you were under the influence of your father. No, I'm not pointing you in any direction now, Salts, but which captain of all the people you've played under, which captain did you learn most from? And I'm guessing from what you're saying, Salts, is that Jacques Rudolph would be up there.
Yeah, it's a tough one, as you said, because if you're then talking about age group stuff, St. Ishmael's and stuff like that, my memory's poor at the best of times. So it would take me a couple of days to remember all the captains I've played under. Why not stay with Jacques as I mentioned him? I love playing under him, and the reasons why, the main one was, he had a big belief in me, and especially what I could do with the ball. Quite often he would chuck me the ball as a first change bowler because the ball was still hard at times, where he'd be like, Salts, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 overs here. This is the attacking play. And I think he loved that attacking option. We won 4-day games in a row with him, and we were never really in position to win half those games, but he just loved the counter attack. If we were 50 for 5 with a new ball, he would send out Waggy, with a mission, and Waggy just hit the first ball over the bowler's head for 6 or something, and we'd be like 50 for 5, hitting 6s and 4s, and we just had an attitude to play a very positive brand of cricket, and he really did have a big impact in that.
I can remember a game at Northampton. It was just coming up to lunchtime. It was Kieran Carlson's debut, and he threw the ball to Kieran, and lo and behold, there's a wicket, and then Kieran carries on after lunch, and there's a fifer, and everyone's asking, well, who does this guy bowl spin for? And he's Cardiff's second, possibly third choice, and he bowls a little bit in second team, but Andrew Salter's the main man, of course. But no,
reminds me. Don't worry, Andrew.
Sorry?
Kieran still reminds me on a daily basis, don't worry.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. Anyway, enough leg pulling to one side, but let's go back then to Edgbaston T20 finals day with Glamorgan against the Birmingham Bears. It was quite a bittersweet week, or it was quite a bittersweet lead up for us as a club, because the late, great Don Shepherd had passed away in the lead up to the game. And I know Don's funeral was a couple of days before the match at Birmingham, if not, I think actually the day before. But for us to go to T20 finals day, county cricket's big day out is what the marketeers would have us to say about it. And here we are, one of the top 4 T20 teams, and there we are kicking the day off. Huge expectation. We'd been there before. Unfortunately, it faltered against the Leicestershire Foxes back in 2004. But 13 years later, we're strutting our stuff at finals day. And as you said, it was quite a day. In Glamorgan in the field, first of all, David Miller, South African, taking some fine catches in the deep. Loads of people sat around wearing glammy shirts, a few Welsh songs echoing around. Then we don't make a great start. Perhaps the power play was not to be. I know there are some people who said that Glamorgan possibly, when they were bowling, could have had a wicket in the first over when the umpire turned down an appeal. But anyway, we deal in fact. We know that we didn't start great in the power play, but then a counter-attack, and in walks yours truly, and nearly, who knows, if that ball had gone 6 foot higher, who knows what might have happened.
I only needed an extra foot, jokes. 6, I only needed an extra foot. The day was absolute carnage. It's quite nice to hear you talk about the game, because I can't actually remember that much about what actually happened. It was mad. It was full on. And to be honest, I mentioned it before about sort of finals days, but anything can happen. And I feel like we had a team and a squad there to really push for that gold spot, you know, that gold medal. So I think, honestly, it was slightly disappointing that, you know, we didn't get to that final. At least we were playing in such a good manner. We were positive. We had the momentum. But you're right, it just didn't quite go our way on that day. As you say, Miller didn't come off with the bat. Colin got out. I think it was Grant Elliott that took an amazing catch, running over his shoulder of 20 yards. So
there was
everything...
Jacques, sorry to interrupt, but Jacques Rudolph batting well. There was deflection on the stumps and he was run out. Yeah, you know, it was yeah. It
just didn't go our way on the day in that aspect. But it was nice to get a couple away in that last over, because it was such a momentum shift. Like I said, my first shot was a Salter Classic edge through third man to get me up and running. I saw Dad play many of those growing up.
But they all look the same at Salts. When I'm writing 4 in the scorebook, doesn't matter if it's off the middle, they all look the same, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm completely happy with it, don't I? And I tried to hit one over mid wicket. That went over extra cover. I think after those first 2 shots, I was like, okay, I need to, dial in here. This is going anywhere. And then I got one nicely over leg side. 1, 2, maybe 2. But yeah, you said it's like all of a sudden we were right into it. We needed X amount over the last 2 balls, and to be fair, Wokes couldn't have put that ball I got out to in the end in a better position for me to try and hit it out of the ground. You know, it was right in the slot, and yeah, as soon as I hit it into the sun, I thought I had enough, but there must have been some wind up there or something, and I'm telling you.
I think, I'm sure the microclimate at Edgbaston with that huge new stand, whether it was all the Birmingham Bears supporters blowing. Yeah,
it must have been, but yeah, it was one of those ones where it was great, it was amazing, it was nice to get close and actually hit some runs at that back end to sort of show, I suppose, some of my attacking ability. But yeah, it was a shame to not really get over the line, because that should have, would have been an amazing day. But it was good fun all the same.
Yeah, I know people say that losing the final, well, at least you're in the final, but losing the semi-final is the hardest and bitterest pill. And I think it was a measure of the Glamorgan team to actually keep going and not to, we learned from it, and I think we came out as events proved in post-COVID in 2021. I think had there been a cricket season in 2020, who knows? Because I think there were signs of progress certainly in 2018, 2019, but it wasn't to be. We're talking about your bowling, and as you've mentioned, I think 3, if not 4 times in the talk so far, you are an opening batter. And let's just talk about your batting, because Glamorgan obviously rebuilding. We mentioned Jar having now a new career in environmental matters in South Africa. Other people coming in and maybe not quite bedding in as we would have wanted, and various opportunities higher on up the order have come your way, both at number 3 and opening the batting. And in the last few years, you've shown prowess in that department. So talk us through that in terms of how your move up the order came about.
How did it come about? Well, they just said, you're opening. No, to be fair, last season, let's just take, because you are right, seasons before this, I've moved up and down the order a bit like a yo-yo. There was a time years ago now where William Bragg was out of the squad, and I filtered in at number 3 to fill in for a couple of games, and that was a particularly good season with the bat. I averaged 40 that year. I'm not great with stats, Chalky, but you remember those seasons. And yeah, that was a real good one. I think I sort of showed myself in that time where actually, this is actually, I can play high up the order and also enjoying it. So whenever there is a sniff of jumping in an opportunity, I do look forward to it. And to be honest, I was excited about last year. We played a pre-season game against Somerset and Taunton, and I think it was a similar occasion where it might have been Colin or someone didn't play that game or couldn't play that game.
I think Eddie Byram was injured because he'd had an abdominal injury and was having an operation.
Yeah, so that opportunity came about in a preseason game to jump up the order. And if you do want to have a preseason game to sort of potentially show where you're at, or if you're in a good place, Taunton's the place to play, because it was for, as you said, early season. It was a great wicket, and the ball was coming on nicely, and just it was just enjoyable. So scored a couple of runs there, and as a lead up to the season, we were a man down with Eddie, as you said, opening the batting, and they gave me the opportunity to open up with Lloydie, and honestly, it was great fun. I've played a lot of cricket with Lloydie now, and for us both to be opening the baton and walking out, it was challenging. It was it was exciting. It was slightly nerve wracking, but it was good fun, and it was nice to see someone as class as Lloydie the other end, make it look a lot easier than it actually was. But we had some fun out there. It was a shame that we didn't quite, or throughout that period, put in the performances we would have liked, or I would have liked. We had a nice 100 partnership against Derbyshire, where he decided to run me out. But apart from that, it was it was good fun. It was a shame that I couldn't put a score together to really show what I could do up top. But I'd like to think that I did some jobs, a job now and again to take at least the lacquer off the ball for Marnus or whoever who was coming in. So, took the shine off it for them chalks for an afternoon session. So I'd like to think I did a job now and again.
Absolutely, and doing it for the boys. But you just mentioned Marnus there. What's it like sharing a change room with Marnus and the world's #1 cricket badger? I think would be the finest description of him. What's it like? Full on,
relentless. Just non-stop. I think I was talking earlier about how I sort of switch off in and around the games or the play, and I think we're completely opposite in that manner. We come off the pitch at lunchtime and he's playing indoor cricket with the boys with a tennis ball half taped up so it can swing, and he just loves it. He loves batting, he loves the game, and he just has a huge excitement for it. So to be honest, the season can be tough, and 4-day cricket is really hard. It is in general. So to have characters like him to bring energy on the pitch, in the field, is hugely valuable. And as you said, someone like Nessa will work, in a complete different manner, who sort of, he won't be playing indoor cricket, or actually he doesn't mind the game himself, but just generally, he'll go about his business differently. But, you put like these characters in a change room who balance each other out, etc. And it can make for, having some energy out on the field, and fingers crossed hitting our potential.
Yeah, and also fingers crossed we see both this summer for a while before they head off for Australian duties. And I suppose the one good thing at the moment, purely from a parochial point of view for Glamorgan, is that Marnus hasn't been filling his boots in India, and that he'll be run hungry when it comes to coming over for Glamorgan ahead of the Ashes series. So a great opportunity to see one of the great characters of modern cricket. Well, let's just go back to the summer of 2021. As you said, the Royal London campaign, there'd been a change in the 50 over competition. It was being branded as a development competition. The 100 draft had meant that quite a few counties were quite decimated in terms of who they were putting into the field for the 50 over games. And at Glamorgan, we had a few faces a few new faces slotting in as well. But we ended up winning the competition. As you said earlier, you didn't start the competition, but you came in, you stuck to the basics, the principles that you know, and you stuck to what you know works for you. And all of a sudden, here we are at Cardiff in a semi-final against the Essex Eagles. Here we are going up against possibly the world's finest spin bowler, apart from those on the Asian continent, but Simon Harmer, one of the world's finest, and the Essex Eagles are just blown away. What was it like, Salts, to be part of a Glamorgan team? You know, the Essex Eagles, here they are coming down, strutting their stuff. They've got a few high-profile players, Alistair Cook, etc. Yeah, Glamorgan win the day.
Yeah, you say you say it better than I do, and yeah, well, yeah, what a game. And like, you know, I think standout performances in that game was with partnership between Joe Kirk and Tom Cullen. But you're right. I think it was that element of, like, again, nothing to lose. You know, we're having a full crack at this. I think Kieran's leadership as a captain for that game and in general was very positive. He like, you know, I think throughout that campaign there was a couple of games we lost, or we didn't quite put in the performance we wanted to, and, you know, there was clear communication in the fact that, like, right, for the rest of this competition, you know, it's 100% effort, it's a full crack, and we're going to front up to these challenges, and that's what we did against, you right, a very good team in Essex. We fronted up the challenge, and we backed ourselves, and we showed what we could do. And there's nothing nicer than watching an off spinner from the other team go over his head into the stand. So when Joe was hitting the final runs off an off spinner into the River Taff, where I've been planted many a time, yeah, it was great. It was huge jubilation. And then you're right, it's the celebrations, it's enjoying the players' company after wins like that I really remember and enjoyed. So yeah, it was great. But I think, yeah, the standout thing from that was just the fact that we fronted up to the challenge. And if there's anything we can take from occasions like such, it's that moving forward, that's what we do, and that's how we represent the DAF. It's by fronting up to these challenges and doing it in a positive manner.
Absolutely, and it was great for us to win a semi-final on home soil. Okay, I know only 3 days later we were up in the East Midlands, but it was a measure of the great support, the great fan base. The St Helens Balconeers, the Glamorgan followers, were able to fill coaches literally within 24 hours, 72 hours. And I know, arriving up at Trent Bridge, I was there obviously quite early in the morning, getting my laptop and scorebook ready. But there was a buzz around the ground, and all of a sudden, Trent Bridge, Nottingham, felt a little bit like Sophia Gardens or Swansea on a good day. And the fan base, the number of people just seeing there, the number of faces that you would see at Cardiff, at Swansea, people following Glamorgan around. And I don't know how many supporters Durham had, but clearly we had the upper hand when it came to the crowd. And that helped us. Again, a brilliant innings in the final by Kieran, doing what he does best, plonking a wonderful six over the Trent Bridge Pavilion. Some good runs later on, lower down the order, setting Durham a difficult target, it must be said. And then you coming into your own, 10 overs, no maidens, 3 for 42. Alex Lees, Graham Clark, and David Beddingham, goodbye, as I said earlier. And, you know, the big guns that all the newspapers were saying, well, it's the big guns from the batting guns from Durham, but they were all salted. So what nice. Was, thank you. I know, nice way to go. But what was the secret of your success?
Well, obviously I'm going to say I don't know, because that'd be ridiculous if I knew that. how did I feel during that day? What I did do was enjoy the occasion. I think looking back at Lords, as I said, that was a bit of a blur, mental day, loads going on. And I just thought, this is an amazing occasion. May not come around again. I'm just going to enjoy it. What an incredible opportunity that this is unfolded in front of me. But like enjoy the day, not just playing, but the morning, the breakfast, getting to the ground, walking around the pitch. So just like really just trying to take it all in and enjoy it. And I think sort of took that a little bit into my performances on the day of just, again, doing what I did maybe when I was 11, and that's just swinging the bat at it, having a bowl, having some fun, enjoying it, enjoying the challenge. And I think that's my overriding sort of emotion and memory of the day, was just really enjoying it. And there was a time where, an occasion I remember was that the first ball I bowled to Alex Lees rolled out of the hand, and it didn't spin at all, and he blocked it back to me. And he said, I think it might be Graham Clark or whoever it was the other end, and he was like, "Oh, it's not spinning, don't worry." and I said to Alex, I was like, because I've played it enough against him and with him, or for the England stuff. And I said to him, I was like, "Oh, give me a chance. I've only bowled one ball." And I think that's just sort of where my head was at. I was like, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to enjoy the day. And he just laughed, and he's like, he said something like, I faced you before, Salt. And I was like, hey, whatever. And then that next ball, just straight and lovely, top of off, probably my best ball, one of them in my career, especially on such a stage. So just funny how that developed and how that came about. But I definitely feel that, as you said, I was just lucky to enjoy the day. I was able to play with a smile on my face. And I think that goes for a lot of the guys on that day. You mentioned Kieran's innings, and, it was probably, one of his best in the competition. And I just feel that, yeah, we enjoyed it. We relished it. We fronted up, and fingers crossed, if that's sort of what I want to take from that occasion moving on into this season, is to enjoy it, enjoy the challenge, and fingers crossed that person good stead.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people, a lot of the journalists after the game, said for the neutral, it was the people, the people's favourites, the underdogs winning, and great to see the team spirit. The thing, of course, that makes us so different from the English counties is that we represent a nation. And I know there were the likes of our friends from Australia in Messrs. Cullen, Hogan and Selman there. We had our imports, Messrs. Wheel and Gorvin, but there is the daffodil glue that binds us. And it was great to see. And hopefully the portent for more victories like that in the coming years. Well, last summer, 2022 started in interesting fashion. The game against Durham, where you take 7 for 45, your career best. And I'm just in the middle, Salts, of putting the Glamorgan yearbook to press, and I was just doing some proofreading the other night. And it just brought back memories at the Durham batters. I know they were hasting towards a declaration, but your very deceptive flight and spin, it's not, you're not a non-spinning off spinner, but your deceptive flight and spin, and people caught at mid-off, mid-on, partly on halfway back or whatever. 7 for 45, not a bad day's work.
Easy game, isn't it? Well, I think that's how I've been getting my wicket since I was 11. And yeah, mad. What a mad start to the season. I think, I really set out to take, well, I look at seasons ahead and some milestones I'd love to achieve, and to take 5 wickets and to score 100 is something that, it's always on the mind and something I'd love to achieve. So yeah, you said to nudge that one off. It was again one of those moments you're like, oh, this is a bit mad. You're right, they were looking to play attackingly, but I've been in those moments where they play attackingly and they get, you know, hold of it. So it's only right that if they can hit you for 6, they can also get out. And yeah, it was nice, you said, to sort of maybe take pace off, use maybe some things I've learned along the way to try and get wickets in other means. But yeah, that was a great start to the season. Really nice to get that 5-wicket haul. And just in case you don't mention it, Andrew, I'll mention it. You know, finishing the season with a 5-wicket haul as well was a great delight. I'm not sure if you were going to mention it, so I thought I would.
Well, it is on the script in front of me, and you know, you start in the end, you know, you bookend, and it's a fantastic, it's against Sussex, and what a great way to finish, and not long. I think it's now in about 10 days' time, you're going to be donning the whites again, because you and the rest of the Glamorgan playing, or most of the Glamorgan playing squad, are venturing off to Zimbabwe. So tell me about that.
It's really exciting. I think it's slightly different to last year, where we went to Wrexham for a couple of days. So I'm really excited about it. Part of me just, you know, I do love travel, love seeing different cultures and places. So there's an element of really looking forward to seeing what Zimbabwe is about, seeing the country. But what I know you're very excited about, Andrew, is the cricket. And yeah, no, there's nothing better than you know, practice out there in the middle. I think that's actually when you start really practicing and getting ready for the season. You're playing with how the ball reacts off the pitch, your angles, your fielding. There's not a substitute for it. So the fact we've got a good solid chunk of time out there to prep for the summer is it's absolute gold dust. So we should be firing on all cylinders come April.
Yeah, and I was chatting with Mark Walton, one of a member of the coaching and backroom staff, only this afternoon, and we were just talking about the games, a couple of 3-day games, some 50-over games, some T20 games, all formats, red ball and white ball, to give Glamorgan a great start hitting the ground. And I can tell you, Salts, that when it comes to that opening championship game, if you go from 99 to 100, there'll be no prouder announcer on the county circuit in terms of announcing Andrew Salter's maiden first-class 100 came from. So I will. I won't practice it yet. I like Salts, the spontaneity and the and when these things happen, and savoring the moment. Okay. Well, we've got a couple of questions. Just we'll talk about your burgeoning business career and life after cricket in a minute, but I've got 3 further questions just very quickly that have been submitted. And Duncan Evans has sent in a question. Duncan can't be with us this evening. He works at a very nice school in southern England, and he's got his scholastic duties. But Duncan, if he were on the call, he wanted to know, what's your favourite ground, but also what's your least favourite and why?
My favourite ground. I can't say Sapphire Gardens because that's an easy answer and people will be like, oh, good one. To be honest, I think
it could be St Ishmael's.
Nah, I never had any luck there, Andy. To be honest, I think it has to be Lords. I think the Oval is an amazing ground, incredible facilities. Trent Bridge, great grounds again. But I think Lords, with the long room, the way you walk out to the pitch, it's just a very special place. You know, the culture and the history there, you can't help but feel it when you get to the ground.
I have to throw in the lunches as well, Salts. They are something different, aren't they?
Yeah, you hope you're well. I always hope we bowl first so I could tuck.
Yeah.
Wasn't an opening batsman then,
yeah, I have to say that of those people who haven't been fortunate enough to go there, it is one of the places where you can have a 4-course lunch. Obviously, I'm always going for the low-fat option, and and it is cooking of the highest quality. And but your least favourite ground?
Probably Chelmsford.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't agree.
No, I am agreeing with you. It is, yeah. Chelmsford on a Friday night can be interesting with a T20 game, but yeah.
It's just my reason being is it's not the fact it's a tough place to play necessarily. It's just the fact that, as you said, you can get very boisterous crowds. It's a very small ground most of the time, especially straight. So for myself, being a twirler, it's a tough place to bowl. You know, the size of the ground doesn't always help. It's normally a very good wicket. It's normally a rapid outfield. So to be fair, it'd be quite good to bat, but as a place to play.
I think the changing rooms there are on the small side, aren't they, as well? So they're all cozy, perhaps.
Yeah, we've had a couple of. Well, I've had a couple of tough days out and evenings in Chelmsford, so it's.
Okay, well, we'll draw a veil over that. But Howell has asked, your most prized wicket, not so who. Of all the wickets you've taken in both first class list A and T20, what's that one that looking back, I mean, when you're there in grandfather mode with the slippers and the pipe and all the rest, and you're telling your offspring, I once dismissed X.
I wish you sent me these questions before, and I could have really good think about it.
I like the spontaneity.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. It's quite funny because obviously there's some deliveries that I'm like, that was a great delivery, and then there's also some good wicket where probably wasn't a great delivery, but it's a scalp. So one of my favorite scalps was Kevin Peterson in one of his sort of last games at the Oval in a T20.
I remember when he hit the ball out deep. Was it Kieran taking the catch? Was that
huge boundary? And
I remember
Kieran
that.
catching it on his tiptoes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my best delivery, but anyway, it was a great scalp. I think, you said his presence walking to the crease. It was like, wow, this is mad. He hit me the ball before 6 straight back over my head, and I was like, right, I see how this is going to go. So that was a great scalp. But as you said, I think that Lee's delivery in the final was one of the balls dismissals that really stands out for me, just because of the nature of the game, and it's on Sky, which always helps, which is great. Save the best for TV games, so I'd have to put those two in that bracket.
Okay, the final question that's been pre-submitted comes from Paul, and Paul has asked, who's the hardest batter or the most difficult batter you've ever had to bowl to?
I'd probably say the best batsman we've played against and I've watched, and I hadn't actually had to bowl to him that much, probably because he was playing so well but every time I saw him and he came across us was Sangakkara.
Yeah.
I think he just played in a way. This is I might have missed someone, but you've put me on the spot, Johan.
No. There was an innings he played at Cardiff. I can remember that one. Yeah, that was different gravy, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just the way that you talk about that knock in Cardiff in the white ball game when Marchant, I think it was at the time, bowling very fast.
Yeah.
And he just had so much time at the crease. And to be fair, Rudolph was the same when he played for us. They just players that were so well balanced at the crease just seemed to have so much time. And he was just an absolute class act. Like a proper, like pure, classy batsman, stroke player.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it can, obviously we're all passionate Glamorgan supporters and we want the boys to do well, but sometimes when class batsmen, when you see players like that at the peak of their game, it's it's quite a privilege and an honour to see that skill. You just wish it wasn't perhaps for so long against the hard-working Glamorgan bowlers. Okay, well, we're drawing to a close, and I know you've still got many years in front of you, but in terms of life after cricket, I know the PCA, Professional Cricketers Association, and how nice it is to see James Harris re-elected as chair. But the PCA do some great work. We mustn't forget the work of Ian Thomas, another former Glamorgan player, in terms of the welfare side for professional cricketers and helping to mentor and guide people in terms of their future careers. But you clearly, and I know you've won awards through the PCA, you clearly have a business head on your shoulder, and your work with your as a biker. I haven't exactly seen you as a Hell's Angel, but anyway, but you're not. I don't think I've seen you drive in as well. You've had some vintage cars, haven't you, as well over the years coming in?
Yeah, I thought you might like them, and I try and time it when you're coming in to drive them in.
Thank you. I do remember them. It takes me back, and it's almost like being an extra on Call the Midwife or whatever, to see some cars from the 60s and 70s rock up. But you are, I think someone did. I spoke to a colleague, a former playing colleague. I'm not going to say who, and I said, "Well, I'm chatting with Salts later on," and 2 words they said, "Oh well, Salts is very much his own man, but he's also quite idiosyncratic in terms of his likes for motor vehicles." I know there are some players who like the flashiest of top of the range cars. The overseas players like Shubman Gill get a nice top of the range vehicle. And for Andrew Salter, a motorbike and a retro car, and a nice business to go on as well.
Yeah. Well, how do I answer that, George? You've summed it up pretty well.
Well, I'm giving you a few clues in terms of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, where do I get my business head from? Dad selling blinds for years, mum and dad, running the most successful business Pembrokeshire could see, You ever need, actually, sorry, we only proudly serve Pembrokeshire, so it's pointless putting that plug in here, isn't it? Well, if there's anyone from Pembrokeshire listening, best blinds in Pembrokeshire. No, to be honest, it's people I've surrounded myself with at cricket, in and around cricket, and I suppose they've always encouraged me to follow interest, to follow passion, and see where it leads me. So I think it'd be sort of unfair for me to say, oh yeah, I've had a business head and I want to drive to try and do these things outside the game, because realistically it was just a case of having the opportunity to follow a passion and interest, and at that time that was jumping on 2 wheels, which mum didn't really know about at first, but slowly let mum know. Dad tried to hide his sort of passion for motorbikes for many years, so it's just that really. So yeah, now particularly busy with bike and stuff, do a bit of photography, graphic design. I like the creative element of it, so dabbling with different things outside the game. You're all right, the PCA do an amazing job. They encourage these conversations, they encourage these lines of experience and work outside the game. I think it's very important because it's a very demanding sport, especially mentally. It's not hot, it's not easy in general, having your contract ending most summers, so as a player it can be a tough place to be. So to try and balance that out with interests and other career paths that could come into fruition is always useful. So I'm saying thank you to PCA, they're great. Yes, I like motorbikes, I like classic cars, I like graphic design, I like photography, I like trying to keep busy outside the game, but I also do like trying to hit sixes, but take wickets and win games for Glamorgan, and yeah, hopefully do the Daft proud. So that's probably me summed up very quickly, if I could do that.
Well, Salts, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure this evening chatting with you. It's great that your mum and dad are on the call as well as lots of other people, and I'm very grateful this evening, not only for your humour but for your honesty as well. And well, we're only now 4 or 5 weeks away from the first game opening the season at Sophia Gardens. I know in terms of the sporting calendar, when we get to the business end of the Six Nations, when the Cheltenham Racing Festival starts to loom, I know then it's almost the time for getting the scorebook out, making sure the software works on the scoring computer, and getting ready for a new season. You're lucky enough to be heading off with the playing squad in Zimbabwe in the first part of the coming months, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone on the call tonight, as well as your mum and dad, wishing you all the very best. Everyone rooting for the Glamorgan boys to do well in Zimbabwe and to come back and to hit the season running. Plenty to play for, so we wish you all the very best. Now, in terms of the forthcoming museum talks, I'm hoping that sometime when the Glamorgan team are back in late March, possibly early April. I know there is a gap in the fixture schedule, but I am hoping to do a similar talk with Colin Ingram, and perhaps as well Sam Northeast, reflecting on a run-laden summer last year. Obviously the priority for the Glamorgan boys is being in Zimbabwe till the middle of March and then getting ready with all the pre-season games. So those dates for an evening with Colin Ingram and potentially an evening with Sam Northeast, those dates will appear fairly soon on the Glamorgan website. But it's been a real pleasure this evening, Salts, to chat with you. And as I said at the beginning, tonight was really subtitled not the two Ronnies, but the two Andrews. So I suppose really I've got to finish off by saying, well, it's good night from him and it's good night from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.